As Halloween draws nigh and the creepies and crawlies come out to play, Loop and Larry become obsessed with finding the best of the worst in horror on the big screen and small. But they'll never learn that bad horror will haunt you forever.
In a world filled with intergalactic space battles, metahuman destruction on a global scale, and psychopathic serial hauntings, there's only one team who can make sense of it all. When your world is overrun with rampant pop culture, call Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
That's right. That's right.
69. 69.
Somehow when you say it, it sounds
Episode
really
69.
dirty. Yeah, stop
What's
it.
that?
Just stop saying 69. There's just something way when you say it, it's just not as cool. It's like,
Oh, we're at episode 69. I have to be
We
able
are.
to say it. Come on.
hey, I'm Loop.
And I'm Larry.
I don't know what I'm giggling at. I'm like a 12-year-old kid. It's
Yes,
so
that's about as
stupid.
old as we actually
I knew
are,
this
yeah.
was going to happen when we got to this episode. I just knew this is what I was going to do. I was going to
Yeah,
react.
we probably should have just gone from 68 straight to 70. I think that would have been
That's what we
smarter.
should have done. We should have
Yes.
skipped this episode completely.
That would have been a much better idea, but we're not that smart.
So it's Halloween. It's October right now, and it's such a I love the spooky season. I love nothing more than what's going on right now. So what have you been up to?
Well, I love it too. I just think it's like licensed to watch all the horror movies, all the scary stuff, do the scary things or the not so scary things, but I just love it. So of course it wouldn't be Halloween without Mike Flanagan giving us another one of his spectacular series to watch. So I have been binging the new Fall of the House of Usher. And I know you have too. I think we both finished. Did you finish?
Yeah,
it?
I'm done. Yeah, I'm finished
Okay.
it. It's so
We
good.
both- amazing. Like it's just he had a little blip there with Midnight Club. We won't talk about that one, but he is back in full form with Fall of the House of Usher, and it's all Edgar Allan Poe based, and it's so brilliant. And I don't want to say because it just came out relatively recently, so I don't want
for us like last week.
yes, so I don't want to
We're
spoil.
recording this. Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't watched it yet. But if you haven't and you like Mike Flanagan, if you liked Haunting of Hill House or Haunting of Bly Manor or Midnight Mass, this one is right up there. But the difference with this one is that it's a little bit more mature. It's almost like Succession, a horror version of Succession. That's the way I kind of looked at it. So it's got a sort of a more mature storyline, but it's just awesome. It's so well done and it's just great.
And it feels to me like really current. It's a lot of like there's a lot of trendy things that are in it. Like that's it's just so good. It's just such a great show, this one.
That's right. And that's true. It's actually like a modern, like I think it's of the ones that he's done, this one's sort of the most modern because it's all sort of cell phones and rave parties and DJs
influencing and all sorts of stuff.
So it's happening now in 2023. So it's a different take on things, but man, he knows what he's doing. It's going to be interesting to see what happens now that, because this was his last one with Netflix. So he's moving on. So it'll be interesting to see if how he maintains that, but I really hope he does, because I love looking forward to a new Mike Flanagan. I'm all about the
new
Flaniverse.
flans.
Yeah, I'm all about the Flaniverse.
Oh man.
How about you?
I've been doing my 31 horror films of October. So I don't do it one a day. I do 31 horror films in October, so I can watch them at my speed. And I'm ahead right now. I'm in the middle right now of number 30 right now. So I've only got the rough.
So you're going to be done 31 before the end of the month.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And what I did last year, then I started watching, like I watched Chucky last year. So that's what I'll probably do this year, because I know Chucky started already, so I'll start watching it. And There's a couple other shows I wouldn't mind watching, so in sort of in the horror vein, so it'll be good. But yeah, I've watched a lot. I watched a lot of Saws, so I watched all the Saws in this one, and that takes up 10 of my picks, right?
That's crazy.
So it was a lot. So I finished Saw 10 the other day, so I've seen all the Saws. Everything Saw has to offer, I've seen. I'm done.
And how do you feel about the franchise now that you've seen the whole complete thing?
Some of it's not bad. Like it really ranges. There's some that are pretty good and then like pretty clever, and then there's some that are just like they feel like a filler episode.
Yes,
because they really do all connect like in some way. There's like a connection in each one, so it's so you kind of have to follow it. But the Saw X takes place between 1 and 2, I think. So
right.
it's actually a backstory as opposed to like a new, like, I mean, it's a new Saw movie, but just it takes place in that time period. So, but it's been
I heard the producers say something about, I haven't seen Saw X yet, so I heard them say something about you don't need to have seen any of the Saw movies to watch that one. Is that true?
I think so.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's characters that are in it that are definitely from the other Saws, so you kind of do need to know kind of who they are, but they kind of explain it when you see them. Okay. But I wouldn't say you have to have seen the other ones. It would help. It definitely would help. But yeah, I've seen quite a few. I'll just list a few. I saw the Saw Prom Night I threw in this year. I'm trying not to watch ones I've done in other years, like in the 31. So and I watch Mask of the Red Death. There's a pull one for you from Roger Corman,
which happens to be the name of one of the episodes of.
Yeah, it is. You're right. Yeah.
So anyway, that was cool. Yeah.
And Evil Tunes, and I watched Frankenstein, like the original, and I try to put a little bit of everything in there. I try to really jump from different like decades, like so it's not all just like 2000s and on or whatever. So I have a little bit of everything. But with the Saws, they kind of forced a lot of 2000s on me, so I had to go back and like watch some older stuff as well. But
yeah, how did you watching Frankenstein, the original Frankenstein again? How did it fare for you?
Actually, I like the original Frankenstein. It was pretty good. The thing I liked about it was tight, and it was like, it's only like an hour and a half or something. It's not that long. Unlike Dracula, like the original Dracula, which I haven't watched in any of my 31s yet, but but I've seen many times, is a long movie. Like it's like two something, I think, the original Dracula movie.
Yes, and that's why I ask, is because at one point I did the whole Universal monsters, like the original, like the Dracula, the creature from the Black Lagoon, the Mummy. I found that the original Dracula was difficult to get through.
Well, remember you and I, they brought it to the theaters, and you and I went and saw it, and then we're like, wow, that's a dry movie.
Yes.
Like there's so many iconic scenes in it, but it's dry. Like I think, and I'm reading the actual novel right now too. And it's like I read The Exorcist this month, and it's an awesome book, like the original Exorcist book. It is so good. But Dracula is dry. It is a dry read. So I'm struggling through it, but I'll get through it.
Yeah, I just remember that the Frankenstein is my favorite of all of them. I really like Frankenstein. I liked Creature from the Black Lagoon as well, just because it's different. But Frankenstein holds up for me. Dracula, I'd love to love it, but it's a bit of a struggle.
And it's the iconic scenes that draw you in, but it's like, but some of it you kind of forget about all the other scenes.
Yes.
What?
Yeah, that makes the entire movie. Yes,
a little bit of a snooze fest occasionally on that one.
And speaking of Dracula, I just want to get your take on this, because one of the ones that you included this year, I think, was the the Francis Ford Coppola Bram Stoker's Dracula, and you have some very definite thoughts on this movie.
Hot take on that? It is a dog. It is terrible. I thought I liked it, and then I started watching. I'm like, this is terrible. Like, I have so many reasons why I don't like this movie. Maybe it's one we could do for our show at some point, but
I think we should. You and I saw it together when it came out in 1992. Like, we went to the theater and we saw it, and we both really liked it. Like, I just remember coming out and you were like, that was great. We had our issues with Keanu Reeves, I remember, because he couldn't act at that point. He didn't have an accent, and it was terrible. But overall, I remember you and I we both liked it. And so like last week when you were telling me you would watch this and how much you hate it. I'm like, what has happened?
I think a lot of it's just because I've seen other movies, and then I like if it's a low budget movie and that was that, I'd be like, okay, that's great. But when you know that it's got the Hollywood machine behind it and all the money behind it, there's just too much happening. It didn't need to. It could have been a much simpler story, and it was too many special effects and weird like eyes in the sky and all sorts of like, you know what I mean? Just things that were unnecessary. I know what he was trying to do, but it didn't work. None of it worked for me. And it was, I don't know. I could go on about it. It was just, I watched it on Letterboxd. I gave it a star out of 5. Oh. Maybe it was a little harsh. I could have been a tiny bit harsh on
that's
it.
That's really harsh. I'm going to go back and rewatch it because I just bought the 4K Steelbook version a few months ago because it came out, but I haven't actually put it in yet. So now I'm motivated to actually watch it.
I don't know what you spent on it, but it was too much.
This is what's fun about the Halloween season is you get to like relive all of these movies that you've seen and see how they've changed you, how you've changed in liking or not liking, and I just think it's fun.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. So today we're gonna do something we haven't done before. We're gonna do 2 selections today, 2 like sort of horror centric selections. And it's kind of like the Loop and Larry twofer. Like it's like a little Halloween twofer for you. I don't know why we decided to do this. I think we just had some different ideas, and then we haven't really done a show like a Halloween like centric show yet, other than talking about In Search of Darkness. But the so we decided to do 2. So let's just jump into them. We'll do our usual, and we're gonna start. Do you want to start TV or do you want to start movie?
Well, let's start movie, but these are technically pop capacitors, right?
Yeah, there's just 2. It's 2 pop capacitors. What we're doing.
All right, well, let's go. Let's get in the car and take a trip down.
I was talking about doing my selections, my 31, and one of the ones I did other than Saw was The Exorcist. And let's talk about one of those right now, Exorcist 2. All right, we are going to start with Exorcist 2, The Heretic, which I think is how you pronounce it. Like, I love when the title, you're not sure if you're pronouncing it right. That's not a good sign off the top.
Not a good start. No.
So Exorcist, one of the greatest, to me, 5-star movie, greatest movie, like one of the best horror movies of all time, stands up 100%. And then, so that was out in 73. And then in 77, they released the sequel, which I'm sure at the time, I mean, we were young at that point, but I'm sure it was high, like, people wanted to see this. And it was probably, people were pretty excited about seeing the sequel to The Exorcist, which was such a breakout hit at the time. So this is set 4 years after The Exorcist, which makes sense because it's actually released 4 years later. So that would be, I don't know why they had to say that specifically, but it was. And it follows Reagan, who was the one, who was possessed in the first movie, and she's in therapy right now. And then there's a priest who's trying to investigate the death of Father Marin from the first movie, and then she doesn't remember anything that happened, so he's trying to get into her memory and find out more of what happened with this demon. Pazuzu, as we like to call him. And so that's the basic plot. But then, of course, things go a little bit awry as they're trying to do this. And she, at the beginning of the movie and then during it, really is like very well adjusted. And I feel like she's just going through the motions of going to a therapist, to like a psychologist, in order to help her along. It's probably something her mother's making her do, but she seems like she's just there for kind of fun. She's not really like 100% committed to this. Like, no. So that's where it sort of stands. And I mean, who doesn't want to see Linda Blair back? There was a lot of things about this that, like, I hadn't seen it in years when I watched it again. Like, I think I may have only seen it once that I can remember.
I know I only saw it once. Like, when we watched it for this time was probably the second time in my life that I had seen this movie.
Yeah, I don't remember. I hardly remembered any of it. I'm like, I don't remember any of this. Like, no. So it was very interesting to watch it a second time. We're going to go through all the hits and misses of this movie. And so do you want to start?
Sure. So,
oh, by the way, this is a critical bomb, by the way. Just the critics did not like this movie, but it did make money because it had a very low budget and it made money above that. So not much, but it did make money.
All right, so I'm going to start with a miss right off the top, and this is a miss that that happened before the movie even came out. They released a trailer for this movie. Did you watch the trailer?
I think I did, but I can't remember.
Okay. It is one of the worst trailers I've ever seen in my life. So everybody's seen The Exorcist. Everybody knows that The Exorcist is moody and like atmospheric, and there's fog, and you've got the tubular bells music, right? That's the iconic thing, but it's like creepy and it's whatever. So then they released the trailer for Exorcist 2. I have no idea why anybody would have gone to see this movie after watching the trailer. The trailer is like 2.5 minutes long. There are literally like 1,000 cuts, like 1,000 edits. There's 1,000 different, maybe not 1,000, but a lot of different shots of the movie. It is so fast paced, and the music is rock. There's like a rock and roll back in music track, and it's like really fast paced music, so that like the cuts are to the music, and it's like the entire movie in 2.5 minutes. But it has like, it is so far removed from what the original movie felt like the tone of the original movie, that it doesn't even resemble in any way an Exorcist movie. And it just like, I mean, I was like 6 at the time, so I wouldn't have been paying any attention to this stuff. But if I had been of age and had seen The Exorcist and knew this was coming, if I saw that trailer, I would have been so annoyed. Like, what did they do to The Exorcist? What? So that's a big miss for me. I mean, maybe we should try to post the trailer, because you should see this thing. It is just horrendous. I have no idea how the studio approved this trailer. So right off the top, the big miss on the promotion for this movie.
Before it even starts, the trailer's terrible. Right off the top,
just awful. Awful. Okay, there you go.
I'll go with the hit on this.
Okay, all right.
I thought the cast was really good. Like, I thought it was actually like the fact. I mean, if they had brought Linda Blair back, it just wasn't there. And there's something about Linda Blair that's really endearing. I don't know what it is about her, but she's just like, there's a cuteness to her. There's a like, you can really relate to her, like, right, depending what she's playing. Like, there's something about her that really draws you in. And there's actually a lot of good actors in this movie as well, which I thought was really, really cool. And like Richard Burton was in it. Louise Fletcher was in it for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. They had like a great Max von Sydow, like there's James Earl Jones. There's lots of great actors in this movie. Unfortunately, the material they were given wasn't the greatest, but they at least started with they had all the pieces there. Script was like the only thing they were really missing. Like,
yes.
Because William Peter Blatty wrote obviously he wrote the book and he wrote the screenplay for the first one, and he also wrote the book, which is called Legion, and the screenplay for the third one. So there was like, I guess like better literary material to back both those movies. This one was written by someone completely different.
Yeah. So, and you can tell. Yes, I agree. Like they had an all-star lineup, like a really solid cast. So I mean, that would have probably drawn people to the theater. But yeah, man, what they did with them. All right, so I've got a hit, which plays off my original miss. Yeah. So a hit was they had a teaser trailer for this movie. They came out, just a very short one, totally completely different from the actual trailer, and it was awesome. It was the teaser, the short little teaser trailer. It was sort of artwork based, like drawing, painting, whatever, and it was beautiful, and it was really creepy. And it would totally would have drawn me in. So that I'm guessing would have been released first, because usually teasers are released first. Yeah. That would have been like, that was awesome. Like, this is a great, and then they released the actual trailer and it killed it. So yeah, so I've got a miss for the trailer and a hit for the teaser. So I'm still in the promotion side of this thing. I haven't even gotten into the movie yet. But yeah, so
you're still working on the pre-pro, the pre-promo, and now
check out the teaser, skip the promo, the trailer. Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Okay, now we're heading into the misses for me. Right. I think I have one more hit, but I'll kind of add that to my final thoughts. So Reagan was going to see a psychologist, and is the weirdest office I've ever seen. So everybody's in like offices, but they're all glass, so you can see everybody else in there. Like there's no way to like do anything like secretive or whatever. Like it's everybody can see everybody, and in the background they just had people doing like weird things. Like there's one kid had this giant wheel and he was just pushing it around, and I'm like, what is happening in this like place? Like I know it's supposed to be for kids, but it just seemed very, very odd.
It
like,
was,
I don't know.
it was, and it also, for me, it felt like they were trying to be very high tech.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It looked like for 1977, it looked like they were trying to go super high tech, very
futuristic.
Futuristic, yes. This whole movie is very futuristic, which again is a massive miss for me because that's not what The Exorcist was. The Exorcist was going back to basics. Like this was literally The Exorcist was going back to like the original Roman Catholic exorcism rituals, like the old school stuff like this. And then this movie is full on like sci-fi.
It's a little bit, it's a different tone, 100% different tone than the first one. The first one seemed like something that could really happen to somebody. This one, not in the least. Like it got really out there, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But so that was one of my misses right off the top. I'm like, what is this place she's at? Like, and a lot of it takes place in these offices, but I'm like, this is like, I've never been to like a therapist where everybody can see you in therapy.
No, I mean, isn't the whole point of that is supposed to be confidentiality?
Yes.
But I mean, if there was a lip reader in one of the other cubicles, you could make out the entire conversation. There was literally no privacy at all. You know what it looked like to me? If I don't know if you've seen this or not, but Westworld. Do you remember Westworld?
Yes.
It looked like the laboratory area of Westworld, which was
also, where you can see everybody working on stuff in the background, and
it looked, and that was full on sci-fi futuristic. So this, I could not understand what they were doing there. But yes, I had that as a miss as well. Okay, so I've got another miss here. The whole premise that the priest in this movie is investigating Father Marin because the church doesn't believe that he actually died because he took on the demon. Like they don't know whether that truthfully happened or not, which totally kills the entire first movie. The church, like, he was authorized to do this. Like, he was authorized to do the exorcism in the first movie. And in the second movie, they're saying that the church is like, I don't know if he was really telling the truth or not. Like, it just totally killed that whole premise. And I was like, what? Did anybody see the first movie when they made this one? I did not understand why they were questioning what Father Marin was doing. Like he should have been sainted for doing what he did. But I just could not understand that at all. So that was a big miss, that nobody's allowed to touch The Exorcist, the original one. Nobody. It's forbidden. And they did. And I was like, you.
My miss is going to come off of yours, and my miss is this is no Exorcist. This is not an Exorcist movie. The other ones, I've seen all the other ones, and I would say they could be an Exorcist movie. This one is other than having Linda Blair in it, it really, like, again, the tone's off. I put down, it's just weird. Like, it's not really like with the dream sequences with the village and the locust, like it just wasn't scary. And I think the possession itself is what makes an Exorcist movie. Like a true, like that's what I liked about the other one. There was like an actual possession. This one had hints of it, but not really like a full on, like, and that's what people wanted to see. Nobody wanted to see Father Marin doing an investigation, or whoever it was, or Father, what's his head?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Like they wanted to see like an actual possession, and like it just didn't happen in the way that I think that we wanted to see it. I think it would have been better off if there was another child possessed, and then Linda Blair was brought in as someone they could talk to see what happened to her, to help save this other girl. Like there was, you know what I mean? There needed to be something. There could have been a million other plots other than what they did.
Yes.
Or she or sudden she gets repossessed because it's the demon Pazuzu's not quite gone, like fully, like while she's just.
Didn't they do a movie with her called Repossessed?
Yeah, they did actually. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Just go watch that with Leslie Nielsen, and you're all set.
That would have been better. I totally
But
agree.
it just didn't feel like it didn't feel like a like, other than having Linda Blair in it, just didn't feel like an Exorcist movie. Like, it was just a very odd pace and just weird things going on. Like, it wasn't the same.
So that's going to lead right into the big miss that we need to talk about, because it's the biggest miss of this whole movie. The whole thing is about trying to read somebody else's mind to get information. That's literally sort of the premise, is that this psychologist has developed this machine, and I have it written down. I can't remember what it's called. Do you have it written down?
No, I know. I had this is one of my misses as well.
Yeah, this is called the synchronizing machine. So they've got this synchronizing, which is literally just like a band, like a leather strap that goes around two people's heads, like each person wears one, and then they each stare into a light bulb, which is literally just a flashing light bulb.
Yeah.
And they somehow, like, instinctively know that you're supposed to slow down your light bulb to get it in sync with the other person's light bulb. And when the two light bulbs are in sync, then you can read each other's minds. But there's no explanation. Like, nobody teaches these people how to do it or why it's happening. They just put the thing on and say, okay, now bring down your light bulb, and you just know how to do that. Like,
yeah, like there's no explanation of how this works. No. It's just like a couple wires and a couple light bulbs, and then it was just so cheap looking. And then the other person can be in your thoughts, and almost like you're in a scene. You've been dropped into like their world, and you can see what they see. And it is so unrealistic. It's like, it's just so ridiculous, because the thing is, Linda Blair couldn't remember anything anyway. So how can she remember things now just because she has this thing on? Like, it just didn't make any sense.
No, it didn't. There was literally, I mean, if they had spent 10 minutes talking about this machine and building it up and explaining how it worked or something, at least you could buy into it. But they didn't. Literally just like pop this leather strap on their head, turn on the light bulbs, and boom, you're in. And they're reading each other's minds. So on top of it just being a stupid idea, it has nothing to do with exorcism or The Exorcist or anything. This is literally science fiction now. This isn't horror anymore. You're talking about like futuristic, like reading people's minds to find clues as to what happened. Like, it was like a Scooby-Doo mystery.
It was like, it was something else with that too that really bugged me. The fact that like here's this machine where you can like be in someone's mind and read them. Then why don't they use these all the time, like with criminals, to see like how they committed the crime or like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many uses for this to see, you know, what a person's like. This is right out of Black Mirror, like this kind of thing, and it was so dumb. The other thing, which leads me into my next thing, which is part of this, is when did Reagan suddenly have telepathy, like where she could like,
I don't know. Maybe the demon gave her superpowers or something. Maybe that's what they were getting at. I have no idea. I like, none of there was no there should have been like a prologue or something at the start of this movie that said, in the last 4 years, Reagan has developed supernatural abilities to move objects and to read people's minds and to do whatever. But there was nothing like that. Like, it just jumped right in and made the assumption that we'd be okay with that.
Yeah, it was.
It
was like a plot device, essentially, just that the priest could get into her mind and see what happened, and then he gets possessed and whatever. Everybody seemed to be possessed at one point or another, but it was just like, it just didn't make any sense. Like, it was just so weird, the whole thing.
It didn't. None of it made any sense at all. All right, so let's put a hit in there just to break up the misses for a bit.
Okay.
The score was really good.
Yeah, score sounded great.
It was Ennio Morricone who scored this thing, which I don't know how they got him to do this movie, but I mean, he had done The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, like all of those Clint Eastwood movies. Like, his scores are amazing, and so I thought, okay, well, this score is pretty good, but it just I just didn't understand why they had him score this movie. That seems so odd.
I think it would have been a high profile movie at the time. Like
Probably.
I saw that like Jack Nicholson was up for the role that Richard Burton played at one point.
Oh,
Like there were
yeah,
actually some high profile people up for that role that they had considered for it.
yeah.
But I think once they read the script, they probably backed off.
I'm guessing. And I mean, it makes sense because you're right. I mean, The Exorcist was so big that a sequel would have been like a quite anticipated, and people would have wanted in. But so I didn't mind the score. I thought the score was okay, but I maybe I missed it, but I don't think that they played Tubular Bells at all.
I feel
Was
like they did at one point, and I don't
Did they?
remember. Maybe at the very end, like after it was all done, I thought maybe
Oh,
it.
maybe right at the end. I can't
I remember
remember.
hearing tubular bells at one point, but maybe I could be mistaken. Maybe I just wanted to hear it, and I thought I heard it. I'm not sure. I
It could
wanted
be.
something good to happen in this movie.
It was just I guess it was too subtle even to, but I mean, and for me Tubular Bells is a big part of The Exorcist, like
Yeah,
having
100. It totally is.
music there, and so not having it prominent in the sequel, like it's not even like this is 5 movies in, like this is the very next movie. It should have been the same. You should have had Tubular Bells as playing as prominently as it did in the first movie to keep them connected. But it just I don't recall. I mean, maybe it was in there. I just don't even recall. It was that subtle. But anyway, so yeah, that was something.
Here's another just small hit that I had,
Right.
and it was
Okay.
it has to do with the cast again. Other than Linda Blair coming back, I thought it was cool that they had Sharon back from the first movie.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
like the actress. Like I thought that was like it helped kind of like solidify. I heard apparently who was the mom in it? Was Ellen Burstyn was the mom?
Ellen Burstyn. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently she didn't want to come back at all. Like she said nope. Like so, which surprised me that she came back for the new movie that just came out. But I mean, at this point, like she probably doesn't care, right? Like it's like because everybody's coming back for movies now. Like so, but she didn't. She said no, I'm not doing another one. That was it.
Well,
But
I would hope it was because she read the script.
yeah, maybe.
Because, she recognized how incredible the first movie was, and then she read the script and was like, "This doesn't even make any sense. Like, why? It would totally diminish her role in the first movie if she had come back into this movie, I think."
Yeah.
So she looked at that and went, I don't.
And apparently as well, Linda Blair said she'd come back, but she wouldn't do the makeup again, like the Reagan makeup.
Oh, really?
And
Well,
so
maybe
there is
that's why.
there is a
Sorry?
scene with like a quick flash or something with her as Reagan. Like now, that was a different actress that played her.
And you can tell.
Yeah, 100%. You can tell. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably why they adjusted the script a bit too, is because they're like, well, we can't have her in makeup. We're not doing all that again. I mean, that was pretty traumatic stuff for her when she was 12 years old. I think she was 12 in
That's crazy.
Exorcist, flat, being thrown around on the bed and all that makeup and all that. And that would, I'm sure I can understand why she wouldn't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But this was such a departure. I can't even.
I can't even.
It was just so bad. Well, what else? Do you have anything else here?
The only other thing I had, which is such a dumb one, was that like, why do people have doves on roofs? I don't understand. Like who actually has a collection of doves on? I've seen it in other movies. This isn't the first movie I've seen it in, but I've never known anyone who has like cages on the top of the roof of their apartment building and has like doves in it that like only they take care of. Like
I don't know. I think it's a big American urban city type thing, because you see them like in movies in New York, like on rooftops, people with pigeons and doves.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never
those
known.
could have been I think they were doves, but I didn't know if they're
Yes.
pigeons or doves or
I think you're right, but you're right. I've never known a single person who's actually owned a cage with a dove in it on the roof of their home.
it just seemed weird. It's like when Sharon was looking for her and she's like, "Oh, I'm right here," and she's got like the dove in her hand, like just taking care of the doves. I'm like, oh my god, like, stop it.
All right, I've got one more hit.
Okay.
I think we're wrapping this up. I think I'll give it one positive note.
Okay.
Visually, it was interesting. It was visually, if you get past the fact that it was not an Exorcist movie, visually it was interesting. Like even the offices like that we were talking about before that were all glassed in, and visually it looked pretty cool. Like it was interesting to look at. There was a lot going on. It was interesting to look at one point. Reagan is sort of in a dream state, and she's walking outside with like a long flowing nightgown on, and it's like in front of these big glass buildings, and it was very, very modern, and but so it didn't fit the movie, it didn't fit what was going on, but visually it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was shot well. Like it looked decent. It was yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
It kept my interest only because visually it was interesting. Like it just, there was that to it, but you like the story was just so weak, and the premise was so far from what an Exorcist sequel should have been, that it can't. You should go to Letterboxd and give this one a 1 star.
I think I may have. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like, so does this stand up? Does it like?
I don't think it ever stood up. Quite honestly, and it still doesn't. If it ever did, it does not anymore. I mean, it's interesting. It's like, I'll say it's interesting to watch just because they went so far off track with it that it's interesting just to see how big a train wreck this thing was. But as far as like, if wanting to further the story of the Exorcist or anything, not even close. Not even close.
Yeah, I would say it doesn't really stand up. I mean, if you're an Exorcist fan, it's worth a watch if you've never seen it. Otherwise, I'd go from 1 to 3. I would skip this one, like, generally. But and it was also, I found it very complicated, like this like the background material, like of what, like Pazuzu and everything else, and the locusts, and it was too much happening, and so I just found it was just a mess. Like the whole thing was a mess, and I don't know. I would say it's like, unless you're a massive Exorcist fan, it's kind of worth seeing it. But it again, like you're saying, it's interesting and visually, and it's kind of neat to see what a mess it can be. But it's like, but other than that.
No. Go straight to 3. 3 surprisingly is amazing. Like usually the third chapter in a trilogy or in a franchise is questionable. Part 3 is great. It's a really good movie. It's not exactly like The Exorcist. Like it's almost like a standalone kind of movie because it's got an entirely different cast. What's her name? Reagan. Linda Blair's not in it. No. None of the original cast, I don't think any of the
other than Marin.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Oh, that's right. He's got a big part in it, actually. But it's George C. Scott, and he is phenomenal, and that one is definitely worth seeing. It is very creepy, but it's creepy because there's a lot of creepy exposition. Like it's a talkie.
Yeah, it's not like jump scare. There's a couple good jump scares in it, actually, but it's good. So
that's a good one. So skip. Let's erase 2 from our memories collectively and go straight from The Exorcist to Exorcist 3. Done.
All right. You know where else we can jump to is our next pick in our twofer. And what's the name of this one?
This one is called Monsters. It was a TV show from the 80s.
All right. Well, let's check it out.
So yes, we have left the big screen and we're heading to the small screen. And I don't think, like Loop said earlier, I don't think we've ever talked about like the small screen horror TV series that used to be a big part of our growing up.
Yeah.
So
really.
Now's the time to jump in. And so this was my pick. And I decided, no, we're not going to go with Tales from the Dark Side or
Hitchhiker.
Freddy's New Nightmares. We're gonna go to Monsters, which I remember watching. Loop had never even heard of it, which surprised me so much because I used to watch this show all the time. So a little bit of background. It aired from October 22nd, 1988 until April 1st, 1991. There were 3 seasons of it, 72 episodes. So it lasted a fairly long time.
Yeah, that's a while.
It's an anthology show, so every episode was a standalone story, 20 minutes long each episode. good length. It originally aired on the Sci-Fi Channel in the States. I don't remember where it aired here in Canada, but obviously not the Sci-Fi Channel because we didn't have that. But I watched it someplace, so I'm not sure where it aired in Canada, but that's what it was. It's described as a horror, comedy, drama, sci-fi, fantasy show.
So it covers everything essentially.
It pretty much is everything, but it's primarily horror related. And it's called Monsters because almost every episode, not every episode, but almost every episode features a monster of some sort. That's why it's called Monsters. It was created by Richard P. Rubenstein, who also created or produced Tales from the Dark Side.
Okay.
And it was because of Tales from the Dark Side that he created this, because Tales from the Dark Side was primarily sci-fi, and it had a lot of special effects and makeup and things like that. And he felt at the time that Tales from the Dark Side was only given credit for the stories and the acting and that sort of thing. Nobody ever mentioned the special effects and the makeup, and he loved that part of it. So he put a demo reel together of all the special effects that they used in that show, and took it to Tribune Entertainment Company and pitched this new show called Monsters based on just the special effects that they used in Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah.
And they were given the green light. So that's why each of these episodes features a creature of some sort, because he loved the special effects side of it and really wanted to create something that would highlight that. The person who did the special effects, or was the consultant for special effects, his name is Dick Smith. And he's affectionately known as the godfather of makeup. And he did the makeup and special effects, well, I mean makeup mostly, for the Godfather movie, The Exorcist, Taxi Driver, Scanners. So he was a big player when it came to makeup and special effects. So that's you can tell that when you watch some of these episodes, that they really did put a lot of money into this. So the thing with this show is it was green lighted, but it wasn't given much money.
Okay.
So it was given an average budget of $200,000 per episode, which was well below what an average TV episode at that time was getting. I mean, when you think about it now, like House of Dragons is like $15 million per episode. So they had $200,000 per episode to make this thing, and it shows.
Yeah.
Some of the sets are really, really cheap looking. It kind of looks like, some people just went to their basement and shot some scenes down there. But anyway, they managed to draw enough of an audience that one of the episodes was actually written by Stephen King. So it became quite a phenomenon. Like, it lasted, like I said, 3 seasons, 22 episodes a season, or 24 episodes, a lot of episodes, 72 episodes altogether. So yeah, it was a great show. I thought it was terrific. So what we did is, so you can watch it if you've never watched it. If you have the free streaming service Tubi, the first season is on there, but all 3 seasons, as far as I know, are on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can watch pretty much the entire series on YouTube. So what we did, because it's 72 episodes, we weren't going to spend.
We watched 70 of them, which is
watched 70 of them. No, what we did was we watched the very first episode, and then the last episode, because we thought, well, that's a good. Let's see where it started and see where it ended. So that's what we're going to talk about. So we started with episode 1, which is called. Let me get my stuff here. Episode 1 was called The Fever Man.
Fever Man. So I'm going to talk about it more hits and misses generally, as
Yes.
opposed to specifics of episodes, because it's a little bit more about the whole thing to me. But
Yes.
my first, I'm going to go with a miss right off the top.
All right.
How do I not remember the show? I don't know.
Don't know.
It seems like something I would watch. It seemed vaguely familiar, but I don't know if I just want to remember it or I just don't remember it. And I don't know whether I just didn't see it.
I don't know. I have no idea. Like, as soon as I was scrolling through Tubi one day, and as soon as I saw it there and started playing the opening, it all came back to me. Like, it was like I watched the show so much at the time. I figured everybody did. I don't know how
I
you
just never. It seemed like something I would remember, and I'm like, but it's like again, I vaguely remembered it, but I don't know. Maybe if I just saw a piece of an episode, like of the opener or something once, like I don't know. I don't know where it played that I would have seen it. But then, like, there's a lot of stations back then that would just pick up these kind of shows and show them like late at night or something, and just sort of do them every weekend or whatever, or during the week, or I just don't know. I was like, how did the show happen in the 80s and I've never seen it? Like, it just seems so weird to me.
I don't know, but I like I said, I don't know what channel it aired on. If anybody out there, if you watched the show, please comment and let us know where it was, because I couldn't find information about where it aired in Canada. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you missed it, but I'm glad we're bringing it to your attention now.
Yeah, I know. And I used to watch around the same time. I used to watch The Hitchhiker.
Yes.
It wasn't a Hitcher, right? No, it was Hitchhiker. It was a Hitchhiker one,
yeah.
which was like, which again was an anthology series, which like always had something weird happen to somebody or whatever. Like, and so I watched that all the time, but I like the HBO one, but I had never seen the show. So I was like, how did I miss this whole 3 seasons worth of monsters and I've never seen it? But
I don't know.
It escaped me.
Okay, well, I'll start with a miss too. I don't have many because I actually quite enjoy this show. But
yeah, I only have a couple for like each. So
okay, so here's my miss. So it's got this really funky opening. So the opening of the show is a camera kind of flies down from space into down to Earth and into the like house of these 3 monsters. There's a mother and a daughter and a father, and the mother and the daughter are cyclopses. They are cyclopses with little horns, and the father is like the Blob. Like he just looks like the Blob.
He looks like Chet from Weird Science when she turned him into that big glob of like goo on the floor. That's what he looked like.
Yes, he looked exactly like that guy from Weird Science. So it's his family, and it's really lighthearted. The mom is coming into the living room pushing a cart with snacks on it, and she says, honey, it's family hour, there's got to be something on TV. And he's flipping channels, and it turns out Monsters is on TV, and she pulls the snacks out, and the little girl, the daughter, comes and says, "Oh, crispy critters!" I can't remember exactly what she says.
Critters, yeah,
crispy critters, my favorite. And she starts eating like this wormy kind of thing, and then the husband turns off the light and looks all excited, and then the logo for Monsters comes out of his eyes, and there it is. It's very lighthearted, and it looks like it's geared towards kids. Like it looks like it's a fun kid show. These episodes are not. They're not geared towards kids. Like they're a couple of them, or some of them, are quite gory, and they're like the subject matter is very adult. So there was a disconnect between the opening of the show and the content of the show, because parents would have looked at the opening and said, "Oh yeah, you go ahead and watch that. This looks like a fun show for you." And then they would have seen that there's like episodes about alcoholics, and there's like a lot of sexual talk, and there's a lot of gore and murder, and like it's not the show that it appears to be when it first starts. So that's kind of my miss on this show, but it's still a fun opening. I quite like the opening. It's clever, but it just doesn't fit the rest of the show very well.
I'll tell you, I have a miss off your miss. So
all right.
So the whole concept of it, like, I guess is like the basics is that this family's watching the show. First off, the mother's like a cyclops, the dad's some sort of like melting like creature, but the daughter actually looks like the mom. So I'm like, how come they're not? Why is she not a combination between the two?
Yeah,
the dad and the mom. She has totally just the mom's qualities and not the dad's at all.
I had that exact same thought. I think that the mom might have been like
Hail
man or something. I don't know. Yeah, there's no Blob in the girl.
But I thought, okay, each opener might be different using that combination of people, but it's the same opener every time, which is, I guess that's fine. But I thought like in between, like when it goes to commercial, when they come back, it might have another little segment with them, then back to the show. But it doesn't. They only do that opener, and then like, but it almost establishes them like regular characters, like an Elvira, or you know, like what's the one with the robot and they watch movies. Monster art. I want to call it Monster Chiller for Horror Theater, but that's from SCTV. With Count Floyd.
Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, but Count Floyd would work as well. But but that's what I thought they were kind of doing with it. But then it's just the same opener every time, and then that's it. But they could have done more with those characters, even in little tiny bits between each segment or whatever, like going to commercial or out of it or whatever. But
yes, I didn't think about that, but you're right. That would have built up that family as like more of an integral part of the show. It would have made more sense that they were sitting around watching TV and then maybe talking a little bit about it. But yeah, no, you only saw them at the beginning, and even in the credits, you don't go back to them. And the credits are like scenes from the story that you just watched. So it was like two different groups put the show together. One group was like, hey, let's make it kind of fun and goofy, and the other group's like, no, let's make it hardcore and adult.
Dark,
put them together. One of my hits is because they had such a low budget, you expect it to be kind of garbage. Because it was just such low budget. But I found that the writing was generally really good. The acting was very good. They did the best they could, especially in the first episode, The Fever Man. It takes place, I'm guessing, in the 1800s. It kind of looks like it's the 1800s. And it looks it's very atmospheric and very creepy looking. The music is good. They play like it's this creepy organ music. So they did a fair bit with a really low budget to make these stories kind of come alive. So I thought that they were interesting. So the last one we watched was called The Moving Finger, and it was written by Stephen King. That one you could really tell that there was a low budget. There were some set pieces that at one point a woman gives birth and she ends up being in a jail cell, but the shot literally looks like just like the corner of a room that they just stuck a plastic plant and a bed in a chair. It looks so incredibly cheap. but I mean, again, they didn't have a budget, so they could only do what they could do. But I think overall they did a good job with what they had, I think.
Yeah. I thought that was also a hit for me as well. I thought the last episode we watched looked like it had a bit better production value than the first one, as far as like the video looked a little cleaner. The first one Fever Man reminded me of like a BBC like Masterpiece Theater, like on PBS or something. Yes. The way it was like the quality of video and the way it was shot, it was almost like someone was shooting a play. Yeah, like it was just had that kind of quality to it. Like
it had that feel too. Like the first episode actually felt like a play. Like it could have been, the whole thing could have been done on stage. It did feel like that. The another hit for me, again, we're sort of focusing on the first episode and the last episode. I mentioned that the whole reason for this show was essentially to highlight the special effects and the makeup that Dick Smith did. The very first episode, it's called The Fever Man, and essentially it's about a guy who fights fevers, it's clever, because when you're getting a cold or a fever, you're always trying to fight that fever. Well, it turns out the fever is a physical being, like it's an actual,
it's in your body.
It's in your body. It's a living creature. When this thing comes out, it's a massive human being, but it's a full body makeup that they have on this person, and it's pretty like it's as good a quality as any prosthetic makeup that you would have seen in an 80s horror movie.
Yeah, like, it looked good. Like I was pleasantly surprised at how good it looked.
So I'm guessing that most of the $200,000 went to makeup and design and prosthetics, which is fine, because that's what you want. If you're watching a show called Monsters that features monsters, you want those monsters to look good.
Yeah, right? At the very least, like the monster has to look half decent at least. Yeah. So yeah, like it was really good practical effects in that. And even in the proctologist one about the finger, Not a
There's
there's
no
no proctologist. The finger one, even it like the finger looked pretty cool too, like as it like went up through the pipes and everything else.
Yeah, that's the Stephen King one. It's like I said, it's called the moving finger, and it literally is a man who comes and goes into his washroom, and he's washing his hands, and a finger comes up through the
Yeah.
through the drain pipe in his sink, and it's wouldn't leave, and he slowly starts losing his mind, and he ends up like cutting this finger off with a trimmers, like garden trimmers and things like that. But
And then he realizes there's like probably 9 more fingers that he hasn't seen yet. So it's
yes,
he goes slowly. That one it started out and I was like, all right, this is like a Stephen King. This isn't that great, but then it got better as it went. I kind of got more into it as it went on. It was actually really good.
yeah, it was good. And it's got a good ending too. Like it's got
Yeah.
a little bit of a surprise ending. We won't give it away in case you watch it, but it was pretty good. It was just neat that it was written by Stephen King. It's not based on one of his books. I believe that he actually wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
Like he actually wrote the story for this show.
Yeah,
So,
and I would feel too, because just knowing like I follow Stephen King on Twitter and that he when he likes something he gets into it and it's like he becomes a fan of it and he'll promote it. If he's like a big fan of like a movie, a horror movie or a horror show, he'll like promote it and give it its due if he is behind it. So, and I usually when he likes something and it's usually like something I would like. So
yeah. Well, that's what I figured. Obviously, he was a fan. He became a fan of this show enough that he agreed to write this, because this was now 1991. So 1990, 91 that his episode came out. So he had been watching it for a while, and so by that point, I think it had been made into the TV show. Was that 91 or 90? No, it was 90, I think.
yeah, and in the last part, at least most of the 80s, he had a ton of movies too, like
Yep.
Cujo, Carrie, like all those were like in Maximum Overdrive, like all those movies all came out in the 80s, so he would have had a lot at that point.
Yeah, so the fact that he jumped on this episode or on this series and took part in it, it says a lot, I think. But yeah, so I mean, it's sort of one of those, obviously it's a lost cult classic, because like Loop had never heard of it, had never seen it. So it's not one that people talk about a lot, and it is quite low budget, but it's worth seeing. And it is accessible, like I said, on YouTube or Tubi. They're all there, and there's lots and lots of, 72 episodes
Yeah,
to watch. They're all pretty cool.
one of my last hits for this, which is sort of kind of goes with, I don't know what more you have, but I just it goes with my sort of wrap up on it. But it's I like a good anthology series. Like I loved again The Hitchhiker. I can't say I've seen every episode because at the time we didn't really follow them by episodes. They were on and you watched them. Freddy, like the Freddy's one. And there was like Tales from the Dark Side, like, even up to like now that Creep Show on Shudder, like all those shows. I like, what was the one last year that you promoted? With the director
Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. Yeah,
like all those shows they're so good because they're just the individual stories.
Yes.
There's a Masters of Horror one I remember too. I didn't watch a lot of those, but again, it was all the big directors did them. But
Yep.
it's such a great form of storytelling because every week's different and you don't know what you're gonna get.
I love a short story, right? So
Yeah.
these are 20 minutes long. So you've got the entire story, start, middle, end in 20 minutes. And that's awesome.
Yeah. And so this show intrigues me. Like I wouldn't even mind going back and watching all the episodes like at some point, because it was actually both episodes were fun to watch, and it's I love this whole concept of these like short, and this is a very short episodes too. They're not like, most of these are like probably 40 minutes in a normal show, but anthology, but this is like 22 minutes to tell the story.
Exactly. They're great. And you also get the nostalgia of they're very 80s looking.
Yes.
Late
Oh
80s,
yes.
they look like that. So you do there is the nostalgia part of it as well. So you do get a complete story that's pretty cool, and it feels like you're a kid again watching these things. So
Yeah.
I does it stand up for you? You've never seen it.
Well,
so
I've never seen it, and I watched it first time and I thought it stood up. I thought it was great. Like I think if I had seen this in its time, I probably would have loved it. I just, for whatever reason, I just didn't see it. So
yeah, I agree, and it still holds up for me. Like I remember when we started watching the Fever Man, that first episode, I actually remembered it. I mean, and I obviously hadn't seen it since 1988, and it came back, and I remembered that creature that they had created. It stuck with me, so I still think it holds up, and I'm looking forward to going back and rewatching a bunch of these episodes.
That's one thing I love about the show. I mean, other than getting to do it with my good buddy Larry, it's the sometimes these things come up, and it's like I brought stuff to the table that you haven't seen before, and it's like it's cool to see some of these things that we may have missed, and it sort of rounds out our childhood of stuff that we maybe didn't see at the time. But the show was great. It was a great pick.
Excellent. And this is technically what we just did is an anthology show. We had a complete review of Exorcist 2 and a complete review of Monsters. We just did an anthology show, right?
We did our first one right there. I like the twofers, actually. We should do more twofers. Twofers are where it's at.
Twofers are good.
Let's change the whole format to twofers now. That's what we should do.
Exactly. It's a Larry twofers.
I guess we'll just end there. That's that's the end of the show. And thank you so much for joining us for Halloween twofer. And for one good, one bad. You know, but the bad one was good in some ways. Like I guess everything you can find a little good in everything you watch.
The bad one wasn't good. No, not really. No.
Well, compared to Dracula, actually, it wasn't too bad. Now that
that's true. There you go.
But thanks for watching again. Check out our socials, and I just wanted to point out one more time from our last episode that the In Search of Darkness, you can order it right now from 90 to 94. It's like one of the best. Like he's not even here to hear us say this, but it's like it is one of the best like horror. Speaking of anthologies, but like horror documentaries I've ever seen. Like it's just all these pieces of horror movies that like. Not only is it interesting to watch, but you're going to walk away wanting to buy a lot of different horror movies that you forgot about. So you can do that right now at 90shorrordoc.com. And I'll give them one more shout out because you only have to the end of this month, which is another week, it's over 7 days before.
Yeah, you have
somewhere in that zone.
October 31st.
Depending when you watch it, October 31st is when it ends. So it doesn't. If you watch it if you watch this on the 30th, you got a day. If you watch it on the 31st, you got to the end of the day. So it's to get in on it.
Watch it November 1st. Watch it November 1st. You're out of luck entirely.
Yeah, you're out of luck. You'll get anything until it comes around next time. So it's awesome. So, anyways, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Bye-bye.
Produced by Matthew C. Loop and Lawrence Simner. A Loop and Larry production.
Bueller.
He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
Bueller.
Bad news. The fog is getting thicker.
And Leon's getting larger.
Inconceivable.
Brian's right. It's an elf.
Wax on.
Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Oh, Captain, my captain.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Wax off.